Hello there and welcome to my questions and answer session. This is the fourth video on YouTube and it's been a while since I did the last one, so I'm just going to answer a few more questions that have been posted. I'm JBal404 and today we're going to be looking at the differences between the three primary hard drive connectors that we use externally. Now the three connections are namely eSATA, FireWire and USB. Now we all know USB. USB is a universal standard, hence why it's a universal serial bus. But FireWire has been a professional aimed interface for quite some time, but it's starting to develop into a consumer oriented connection as well. eSATA, it's quite a consumer oriented connection because it's found in many consumer oriented products, and it's more popular than FireWire on hard drives, and it's considered the king on hard drive speed. So we're going to look at some performance details about these three connections and why you would choose which. There are many reasons to choose the connections. It's not just as simple as speed makes it worth getting, because some other factors do actually come into this. Well, to start with, here are three connections from the top to the bottom: eSATA, USB, FireWire. Okay, well, USB is well recognised in the industry, whereas FireWire and eSATA aren't quite as popular. USB has been seen on a lot of consumer-oriented products, and the cheaper hard drives will feature only USB. USB 2 operates at 480 megabits per second, and it's intended to be replaced very soon by USB 3, which will operate at 4.8 gigabits per second. That's 10 times faster. Now, USB 2, as opposed to FireWire and eSATA, has that main advantage that almost all computers out there will feature USB of some kind. Netbooks all feature USB. PDAs, they actually feature a form of USB, not that it's any use for external hard drives, but they do feature it just to show the widespread availability of USB. Now, USB does actually have a few flaws in it. The first being that its maximum speed is actually 35 megabytes per second. Now, theoretically it's supposed to operate at 480 megabits per second, but it actually operates closer to 35 megabytes per second, which is not near its cap of 60 megabytes per second that the theoretical speed suggests. The next connection is FireWire 400. Now, FireWire 400 has the main advantage over USB 2 that it has a higher sustained peak. Even though 400 is suggested that it would have highest peak speed of 400 megabits per second, it actually beats that by quite a bit, and it manages to get 90 megabytes per second, which translates to, about 600 megabits per second. Now, FireWire has a higher sustained peak speed, which means that it will keep at a higher speed for a longer time, which means that files do transfer generally faster, because it means there's not as many ups and downs, so its speed stays quite average. USB, although it keeps its speed quite average, only manages to get 35 megabytes per second. So FireWire does have that main advantage, that it is faster. However, the main disadvantage of FireWire is that most operating systems don't immediately recognise a FireWire device. USB, on the other hand, it's plug and play immediately and it's automatically detected. I mean, there are many issues out there with FireWire on Windows 7 and even Windows Vista and Windows XP, but some drives don't automatically detect. Also, FireWire is less common than USB. USB is found in all sorts of devices, including netbooks, which you won't find FireWire on at all. There are two types of FireWire as well in the 400 series, which are FireWire 6-pin and the FireWire 4-pin. 6-pin can provide up to 60 watts of electricity, although 35 is more standard, but it doesn't provide enough normally for a hard drive as well. FireWire, as I said, does provide power, unlike USB, which allows it to control devices in a different way. It allows it to provide for them as well, so they don't need an external power supply. Although most external hard drives do still feature a power supply connection as well as the FireWire. The third and final connection is eSATA. Now, eSATA stands for External SATA. SATA stands for Serial Advanced Technological Attachment. Now, it's the standard inside the external hard drive enclosures that's taken over from IDE, or Integrated Drive Electronics, ATA. SATA is a serial attachment, obviously, and hence why it works very well with FireWire and USB. But eSATA is just based entirely on the SATA connection inside your computer, so that it has no conversion required at all. Now the main flaw in this is that unlike USB and FireWire, the maximum cable length is 2 meters to 3 meters. 3 meters has been tested and does work, but 2 meters is the suggested length that it can be at maximum. eSATA can't provide power, but they're thinking of bringing out a version which does, and it can provide up to 3 gigabits per second, which is far faster than FireWire 400 and far faster than USB 2. They'll bring out the next eSATA, which will go at 6 gigabits per second to go with SATA 6 gigabits per second. Now obviously as eSATA doesn't need to convert, there's a far faster connection. Okay, well the next part of the video is just going to be showing you some graphs to show you exactly speed-wise, and it all comes from HD tag. Okay, well we can clearly see here that USB 2 has dropped below its expectations of 480 megabits per second and gone for 280 megabits per second, or 35 megabytes per second. Also note that USB is using about 3% of the CPU here. Okay, well FireWire is averaging 79.9 megabytes per second, which is close enough to 630 megabits per second. This is far faster than the 400 that it's theoretically meant to get, and its peak is close to 100 megabytes per second. Also notice that FireWire is only utilising 2% of the CPU as opposed to 3%. And finally we come to eSATA. Now eSATA is averaging 55.6 megabytes per second, which is approximately 440 megabits per second. A lot slower than it was expected on its theoretical basis, and also in the fact that eSATA is a direct connection to the board. However, that might actually result in being the problem that eSATA is connected to the SATA controller, which has to distribute between so many drives, and I have 2 drives in my computer that are also using SATA, so it has to distribute between these. So perhaps at the best it might actually achieve well faster than FireWire's actual speed there, but for this time it's only achieved 55.6 megabytes per second. But on that note, it isn't using any of the CPU at all. Okay, so there we have all the results. We've discovered that USB is the slowest, then apparently comes eSATA, then FireWire. But in theory, FireWire should actually be slower than eSATA, and then USB would come at the very bottom. Theoretical speeds, it would actually go eSATA, USB, FireWire. But we've discovered today that FireWire is the king with 90 megabytes per second as opposed to eSATA's 60 or 70 megabytes per second. Thanks for watching this video, and keep your questions coming, and comment please, and rate.